The high point of the gaming calendar, E3 2017, has both arrived and sadly gone, and now as we find ourselves lying in this video game equivalent of a food coma, gluttoned on both gameplay footage and demonstrations from the various conferences we saw throughout. But now it's time to recap and look at what we saw, and for that purpose this is what the show is going to be about. This is Game Warp, I'm Elwood.
I'm Kim. Welcome to our E3 impressions.
Obviously, E3 2017, as with the previous conferences, this is the high point. This is what all gamers are looking for the whole year round. This is our equivalent to Christmas. And this year it was certainly no disappointment, as we had not only several conferences from the heavy hitters such as Ubisoft, Sony, Microsoft and EA. We also saw the smaller development companies. We saw so Ubisoft and Bethesda also bring in the demonstrations of shame. We also saw the smaller conference with the PC gaming show as well. So needless to say, no matter what platform you choose as your particular choice for gaming, there was plenty to see and plenty to enjoy in this conference, and we're certainly going to run through the conferences now on this episode and talk about the high points and some of the low points that made up E3 2017. So, kicking things off, we're obviously going to start with the EA conference. EA, they're obviously known for their sports games, so both myself and Kim, this really isn't our field, is it? So,
yeah, no, I mean, it's expected for EA to do it. So, there's Madden 18, there was NBA Live 2018, there was FIFA 2018. All these games now have pretty much embarked on this idea of having a journey for one athlete, for you to fight through whatever journey it is, to be drafted into the NFL, or to be a star in FIFA, or for NBA to battle it out in the streets or in the leagues. You know, none of these things really impressed me, as in it seems like it's just one formula for all the sports games, but I mean, they have their fans, and they have people who enjoy this sort of game. But then, I mean, EA is also known for their long-running franchise like Need for Speed Payback, and that is definitely a highlight for myself. I was looking forward to it the moment that they had announced it a few days before the conferences were going to start.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you mentioned already Need for Speed Payback. This obviously sees a Fast and Furious element being added to the already popular franchise, and when we were looking at like the most stunning sort of trailers that we saw in the conference, this sort of like really knocked it out of the park, and it kind of took away from a bit of the humdrum we were in, kind of like, oh, it's another FIFA game, it's another Madden game, it's another NBA game. I mean, these sports games are all fine, and as you said already, they have their fans. They aren't essentially giving us anything new. They're adding new players, they're adding something a little shiny, they're polishing controls. It's nothing. Yes, it's important if you're a fan, but to the regular Joe average, I mean, this isn't something that's really a sort of standout. It's just, obviously EA have got to be seen as putting forward their key titles and leading ahead. The same, we obviously saw new DLC packs for Battlefield 1 with both In the Name of the TSAR and Night Maps being announced. Of those, In the Name of the TSAR certainly being one of the most interesting ones, as it's going to bring it in the blistering cold of the Russian landscape, probably one of the largest fronts of World War One. We will also see new cavalry units with the Hussar Cavalry, and we're also going to see, the most excitingly of all, the all-female Battalion of Death. Name of the TSAR will also launch with 6 new maps, as well as new vehicles as well, an expansion of the army as well. So Battlefield 1 players have really got some nice stuff coming their way. The trailer, I think, got everyone very excited, but I think there seemed to be a running theme of the conference whenever you had a war game, because we saw with Call of Duty World War II, everyone got really hyped up at the Sony conference when they showed the trailer for that, apart from the poor guys at the front, because Sony decided that they were going to go for 4-dimensional and rain snow on people, and for the Call of Duty one they pumped smoke in, so the guys on like the first 3 rows were like being smoked out by this smoke that they were filling the theatre with, but it was all very exciting stuff. But I think with EA, last year we saw the announcement of EA Originals, which obviously is their support of independent games, which obviously your wing came. I mean, were you excited about what they announced?
I was really excited. I was really looking forward to what they would talk about. The fact that they usually only pick one game to talk about, it seems like this is the trend from this year and last year. You can see that. I mean, this year is about a co-op game, which completely piques our interest because as a team of two on Game Warp, we always have to look for co-op games, and we unfortunately haven't been able to find any. Sure, we're on different time zones, and we'll have to do this the unconventional and unintended way, because this is meant for a couch co-op. But I think that it would still be a really solid one, which kind of reminisces on people compared it to Shawshank Redemption, people compared it to Prison Break, and even Uncharted in certain ways because of the escape and all the action, and it looks like a really fun game, especially because it's by the team behind Brothers, which also developed a single-player game that controlled two characters. Now they get to expand on that idea, bring it into a bigger game, and I think it looks fantastic, and it looks like it could be a really, really fun adventure.
When we were obviously looking at it against the conference, then certainly A Way Out was right up there at the top, and it's surprising for an indie game to be beating out AAA titles. But I think everyone who saw A Way Out was absolutely blown away. Certainly the floor demonstrations were also very impressive as well, and the fact that the company from Hazelight Games have decided that this is a couch co-op, so there is no internet matchmaking at all for this game. You have to either be on a couch with a friend, or you have to know a friend who has a copy of the game and connect over the internet. So each of you will control either Vincent or Leo, and you have to work together to both escape prison and go on the run. And in many ways it seemed like what Kane and Lynch were aiming for but just couldn't pull off, when we look at obviously like the 360 and the PlayStation 3 game Kane and Lynch Deadman. And this game, it does look great. The teamwork's there. The ability to have one character like distract a guard while another is doing something behind them. There's just all these elements which really emphasize the teamwork element, and the fact it's old school split screen as well is just really fantastic. And it brought like a real sort of hip twist to it, because it doesn't look like, oh, we're splitting the screen. It looked like you were watching a movie where it's got a split screen shot, and like you're watching the action happening on the right side and the action starting on the left, and they're both part of the same picture in a way. But no, certainly Way Out is one of the more exciting titles of this conference.
Yeah, I mean, of course, there are a lot of people who are particularly the huge audience of Star Wars fans was looking forward to the Battlefront 2 announcement, especially since they even got John Boyega to do a little video talking about, just what people wanted from the game, and him tweeting and the things that they got about the whole thing. And they had like a very enthusiastic voice actress of the game itself to come and present the game, and this was definitely one of the high points. Obviously, I'm not much of a Star Wars fan, so I would have to ask you what your impressions are.
I mean, it was really great. I mean, you mentioned John Boyega already. I mean, he's already responsible for what EA CEO Andrew Wilson called the tweet that was heard around the world, when he basically criticised the original Battlefield for not having a story mode, and that's certainly something that EA have gone out and aimed for this second one, is that it's going to actually have a single player campaign as well, which was certainly missing from the original. And it's sort of like a running theme with EA's conference, is that they wanted to acknowledge that they take on board the criticisms they've had of games in the past, and they're trying to make changes, they're trying to improve from them, and taking everything as constructive criticism. EA really established at the start of this conference a theme that ran for the week. This is about the theme for E3 this year was really about gaming for the love of gaming. It's about creating experiences and coming together as gamers. And EA sort of kicked this off, and we thought, well, this is going to be just EA's target. But as the conferences went on, you saw all these other companies getting behind it, and it was like, this was like one of the big themes. The other was the theme of unity, and we saw from the head of Microsoft today that he was talking about wanting to coexist with Sony, that they don't want to be this case where you have one dominant console. It wants to be the fact that consoles were in friendly competition with each other, and they're using this competition to make themselves better and produce bigger and better games rather than just trying to eradicate each other. And it's just a real spirit of unity that they went for the conference, and EA really kicked it off. And certainly from what we saw with the Battlefield 2, it looks fantastic. You're going to be able to play from characters from all three eras. We saw a Separatists versus Clone Troopers battle demonstration, which perhaps it lacked some of the scale as the Battlefield 1 demonstration we saw last year. Certainly there was a distinct lack of celebrity presence, so there was no likes of Terry Crews getting to see him try and play Battlefield. But no, it certainly looked exciting. I'm a Star Wars fan, and this certainly had me excited to come back to it, and especially the fact that this edition of Battlefield, all the content is going to be free for the upgrades, so we're going to have none of the pricey packs that we had with the original Battlefield 1.
Yeah, that's definitely a good strategy, and I think that one of their heavy hitters and what everybody thinks any company needs right now at this point, especially, I'm going to have some fancy words when Bethesda comes by, about this sort of strategy, is that EA actually has a new IP that they're introducing, and they gave a teaser of it, and it's called Anthem. Kind of Destiny mixed with Horizon Zero Dawn. It has a really nice kind of texture to it. But obviously this was just a teaser, and we'll talk more about it in the Microsoft conference, which we're going to talk about next.
Now, the Microsoft conference, this was one of the big conferences, mainly because we obviously got the announcement of what Project Scorpio was, now revealed as the Xbox X. This is going to be the premium console, which it's certainly going to be attached with a premium price tag. Now, Microsoft have obviously responded by saying that, as with the Elite controller, that this is a premium product and they are not treating it as being any different than like the Xbox Slim or the original Xbox. It's all the same. They're viewing it all as being the same. They're just offering a premium product for customers who want the premium product. They were saying that when they announced the Elite controller, that they thought they would ship very few units, and that they were doing it just so they could offer that sort of premium purchase for the gamers who wanted it, and obviously it sold well. And again, they're now doing it with their consoles as well. So the Xbox One X, I mean, Kim, do you want to run through the stats for this? Because I'm not a stat person. When it comes to tech, it's sort of like I'm very base level on what does what. So
okay, so the specs should be on the screen right now as we're talking about it, which will be, they talked about having 3 components of this whole thing, and it was kind of like talking about the powerfulness of it and the capability, but the deal is that, like, what this includes is 6 teraflop GPU clocked at 1.172 gigahertz, 12 gigs of GDDRS memory, 326 gigabytes per second of memory bandwidth, and true 4K. Now, what true 4K means is that it will have HDR, wide color gamut, premium Dolby Atmos sound, and 4K UHD Blu-ray playback. A bunch of those words, I don't even know what it means because I'm not a really techie person, but I'm sure it means something to the people watching this. I guess one other thing you want to know is that Xbox X is also the smallest Xbox ever. Now, the biggest issue for myself into why I haven't gotten myself an Xbox One X, and for many people that I've talked to during this conference and before even talking about Scorpio, was the fact that people need a reason to get a console. If you're already a PlayStation 4 person, or you already own some form of PlayStation 4, you need to know what is your motivation. I can play everything that Xbox has on my PlayStation 4, barring a few exclusives, obviously, Forza and Killer Instinct and Crackdown and the likes, But I think the biggest thing that this conference had to show was not how powerful their Xbox was going to be and what I could do with it, but I need to know what is actually available for it. And that's always been the reason why I've hesitated onto getting an Xbox. Obviously, you're in the Xbox One. You own one right now. You probably have a better idea of, does this excite you? Does this make you want to get one? Like, upgrade your system?
For myself, it's not something that I will want to upgrade, but and again, I'm not a premium player as Microsoft would obviously class us as. And yes, I mean, whenever there's new tech introduced, there's always this sort of hesitation of whether it's going to be worth it. And so previously, when we saw like the launch of the Xbox One, there was a lot of flaws that PlayStation took great delight in highlighting and then beating Microsoft down with, such as the fact that you wouldn't be able to share games, the fact it always needed to be connected, and Microsoft obviously corrected these things after the E3 conference when they've realized that nobody wanted these things. Now, they seem to have obviously learned the lessons when it's come to the Xbox One X, as this is going to be compatible with all your old equipment, all your own games, that are all going to be compatible. All this machine is going to essentially do is upgrade the graphical experience. It's going to improve on what you already have. So it's not going to be the case that you're going to have to go out and rebuy all your games again. You're going to be able to use all your existing games and equipment with this. This is, as I said, this is going to be just an upgrade in your gaming experience. So while it's obviously the scope, the Xbox One X was at the center of this, and there was obviously this fear that it would basically descend into tech porn. There was a lot of trailers introduced with this. I mean, Xbox are introducing 22 exclusive titles, something that they've sorely been needing.
Yeah, you know, they did have like a breakthrough. I think one of the exclusives that are super foundation for them is their Forza franchise, and Forza Horizon 3 did fantastic last year. Lots of great reviews, lots of talk about how it's one of the best racing games because it seamlessly transports multiplayer in and switches locations and do all these little fun things, you know, that really promotes being like in this racing world in all sorts of landscapes. So now they are focusing back for this one. Forza Motorsport 7 did something revolutionary in a way where, for someone like me who kind of does like cars quite a bit because the stunt gamer who is my husband is also a big fan of these things. So they launched the first appearance and they launched the car of the Porsche GT2 RS, which is a sleek looking car, as you would expect with a Porsche. And at the same time, they also launched, you know, they got professional drivers to kind of showcase the game a little, using that car in the game. And this is Forza Motorsport 7.
Yeah, I mean, we obviously saw professional drivers Shannon McIntosh and Verena May doing the actual game demonstration for it. And you kind of always want to see that if you've got professional drivers in, how they're actually going to handle a virtual car. And they drove absolutely fantastic, but so it's always nice to see that they can trust them over.
But the one thing that I think would be better was that they're professional drivers. Why didn't they even make the least of an effort to put like a racing seat there or something? Because professional drivers don't drive with a controller. It lacks authenticity. I don't know. It's kind of a feeling I got. But I mean, moving right on, they got the exclusive to show off. Like they got they're the first conference to show off Assassin's Creed Origins, which is set in Egypt, which is also a highlight of the festival because everybody's been looking for Assassin's Creed in Egypt and an origin story of, you know, just where all this started.
Yeah, I mean, with Assassin's Creed Origins, this is probably one of the biggest promotional cock-ups, as the promotional team accidentally released a bunch of material that perhaps shouldn't have gone out before the conference, as we had things such as the t-shirt, we had a pre-order card appearing that basically gave away the setting for this game as well as the name of the game. The game itself is going to take the story right back to the beginning, so this is essentially a reboot for the series, which many have felt had become very convoluted and confused. This time you're going to play as Bayek, who's an Egyptian sheriff who also has a sideline as an assassin, and he's going to be battling the forces currently corrupt in ancient Egypt, and it's going to lead up to what we expect to be the formation of the Assassin Brotherhood. So the game itself, it showed a lot of interest in new techniques. The fact that he has a hunting hawk, which he can use similar to the drone in Ghost Recon Wildlands. And the combat mechanics as well have also been altered, so they're now more familiar with like the likes of The Witcher or Dark Souls. Certainly from development notes, they've promised a lot more fluidity than we've previously seen. There also is a removal of towers, so this is going to be a completely new way of approaching the Assassin's Creed game, and we'll obviously be interested to see how it goes, even though Ancient Egypt seems a bit of an unusual move after Victorian period. It seems to be a bit of a jump back, but at the same time we can see why Ubisoft would be so keen to reboot the franchise at this point.
Another exclusive that came out, we have State of Decay 2 that was announced, I think, last year. Crackdown 3 was also an exclusive that was announced this time, and we talked about Terry Crews not being at the conference, but he was, in a way, because he was in the trailer of Crackdown 3, yelling at the screen, as he normally would. I really don't know much about Xbox exclusives, so I'm going to pass this on to you to talk about what you thought about it.
Yeah, I mean, the Xbox exclusive, it's a bit of a mixed bag. We obviously, as you said, we already had State of Decay 2. We got PlayerUnknown's Battleground also coming. We saw some early footage for the Darwin project, but this is currently been set up as like a multiplayer survival game, and that's coming from Scavenger Studios, but it was a demonstration that didn't really give much away. We also saw Sea of Thieves, which is a game which has been generating a lot of buzz on the showroom floor, mainly because it's going up against Skull and Bones, which is kind of like the more serious pirating simulator. This is more like get your friends together and we're going to go on a comical romp across the high seas. And we also saw Cuphead, which apparently is going to be coming out in September 29, but
I think that's definitely one of the expectations. I believe before we went into Microsoft, that was the one criteria I had, was that I was like, you know what, I don't know what Project Scorpio is, and I have no idea how they're going to wow me, but the one thing I wanted to see in this was Cuphead finally getting a release date. And they did, and I was very, very happy with it. I mean, obviously, like, it's a boss battle, sort of payback to a 1930s old school cartoon style. It has, like, a jazzy soundtrack, and it's a lot of fun. It looks like a lot of fun to do. I'm horrible at boss battles, but this is the one game that I will upgrade my PC to Windows 10 in order to be able to play it. I still can't justify myself getting an Xbox, even with this conference and their full list of ID at Xbox Game Reel, which is just indie games, which is their indie division right now. All these games, they listed, I think, about maybe like 15 of them in a game reel, and there are some really nice titles. A lot of them are accessible on PC. Some of them have already released. Some of them have demos. One of them that stood out was Observer, which is from the people who did, which is from Bloober Team, which is the guys who did Layers of Fear, which is an incredible, fun little psychedelic horror experience, which this one changes it to a sci-fi location. Hello Neighbor also has had a lot of publicity, but sadly, they're at their 4th alpha just released, and the reviews are coming in that it's just getting a little worse. So I don't know what to expect. An indie title that has caught our eye, and we're big fans of the game itself, is Life is Strange. And we're talking about they're going to do a prequel, which is not from Don't Nod Entertainment, but probably because they're already doing Life is Strange 2. This one has 3 chapters called Before the Storm in general. And the first chapter launches on August 31st, which is very, very soon. And it focuses on Chloe and Rachel before the events of Life is Strange, the main game.
As we said before, Life is Strange, as regular listeners to the show will know, we were big fans of the original game. So to see Before the Storm, a prequel coming out, is very exciting. The fact we get this chance to go to Arcadia Bay. Certainly on the fan community, a prequel was probably one of the biggest expectations from the game when the sequel was announced. As we said, we've only got a very cool looking trailer to go off, so we have no idea whether the ability to time travel is going to be included. We've got very sort of vague hints at what the story as well is going to be about, but the fact it remains the same graphical style, even though Don't Nod Entertainment aren't working on the game, makes us very eager to obviously see this game when it's released. And the fact we are obviously getting a Life is Strange 2, so we're getting a double dose of Life is Strange. I mean, it's hard to not be excited about this. So
yeah, and to be honest, I mean, I remembered when we were brainstorming whether to do the fanfic competition, I actually had outlined a story about Rachel and Chloe before the events. So I'm extremely happy to see like what the actual story they actually will give to them. Another super exciting title for myself is Ori and the Will of the Wisp, which is beautiful. I personally haven't played Ori and the Blind Forest, but I guarantee you that I will be streaming that very soon. However, we are working on this month's featured game, which is Seasons After Fall, which is a spiritual successor, but this is the actual sequel. So it looks beautiful. It looks like it just fantastical. I mean, I'm excited to see more of Ori and the Will of the Wisps. I mean, I heard Ori and the Blind Forest is a heartbreaking and emotional experience. So I'm all for this sort of game. They look pretty, they're platformers, they're, anything. Like, visually is fantastic.
Wrapping up the Xbox conference, the announcement that the Xbox backward compatibility library is going to be expanding and to include original Xbox games. That's right, if you're like me and love to hoard all your old games, it's going to finally be justified, as you will soon be able to play your original Xbox games as well. This is going to massively expand what is already a fantastic games library for the Xbox, as now you're obviously going to be able to play Xbox 360 and Xbox One's console. This is an absolutely huge library of games you're now going to have access to, and certainly one of the aspects of the Xbox that they're certainly most proud of, and that they're really using as one of their selling points that obviously PlayStation don't offer. PlayStation, obviously with the network, will charge you again to repurchase your old games. This announcement was also great with the news that Crimson Skies is going to be one of the first backward compatible titles, one of the best titles of the original Xbox, but perhaps overshadowed with the likes of Halo and Conker's Bad Fur Day, which more than likely will also be quickly joining it. To celebrate this fact, Microsoft have also re-announced that you're going to be able to get your hands on a reproduction of the Duke. That's right, the original Xbox controller, the big chunky heavy one, also known in some circles as a wrist cracker, will be available in time for Christmas. So if you want to get your hands on a retro Xbox controller and feel like damaging your wrist all over again, then that will be available in time for the holidays.
Also, of course, as we promised, we're going to dive in a little deeper with Anthem, because this, in Microsoft wrapping it off, we actually got a extended kind of gameplay review, seeing how the players entered the game, which is very Destiny-like. There's also, there's exosuits and called javelins, and there's all these abilities. Of course, there's also in-game chat, which we saw, a lot of forced dialogue. But aside from that, the world looks really cool as you see them, run around, and definitely one of the more impressive games to show up, especially because it's a new IP, and it's something new to look forward to for BioWare, who, I guess, for their sake, really need it, because Mass Effect Andromeda got very mixed reviews.
This now takes us on to Bethesda. Now, this was probably one of the weaker conferences. I know Kim certainly didn't like it. And it opened so adorably. We opened this adorable montage of the video game developers and their kids, and they were showcasing their passion for the work they do and making video games, and that we were taken on this guided tour of Bethesda Land, which is obviously that adorable cartoon graphic we saw in the lead up to the conference, and we finally got to see what the under construction parts were.
But my thing with Bethesda, and why I have to cut in right now, is that Bethesda was not just the weakest. It was boring and late, and no matter how short it was and fast paced, it still felt so long, because what Bethesda needs is what EA did. They need a new IP. That's what I think. They either have an IP they're working on that they can't reveal yet, so that's why they're doing all these sequels and stuff with other teams, or they've already released all the IPs they wanted, and now they're stuck with doing sequels. I don't know which it is, and I don't want to piss off Bethesda by saying this, but, I don't care about VR. I don't care about Bethesda VR. Doom is fine. Fallout 4 is fine, but these games are 2 years ago. Let it go. Do something new. Same with Elder Scrolls. You just got Morrowind that came on, and people are fantastic and happy, and they love the game, and, you have, the 4th remaster of Skyrim to VR, and then of course, Elder Scrolls doesn't end there because now they have Legends, which is a card game following the trends of everybody else, especially after Gwent released theirs for Witcher 3, you know? I mean, you're moving on, and you're looking at this conference, and by the time you get to, like, one of the highlights is probably Dishonored getting their DLC. And Death of the Outsider looks great. It looks really fun, and I think that was one of the highlights. Once you got through that boring segment of Elder Scrolls for, like, 10 minutes, you know?
Dishonored Death of the Outsider. It's a DLC, and it's ironic that it's one of the high points of the conference, especially as it's just really an addition. But I mean, for the fans of the series, it will see the reunion of Dud and his second-in-command Billy Lurk from the original game's DLC Knife of Dunwall, as they seek to take down the Outsider. And this is the latest edition. It's really good in some ways to making up for the fact that Billy was largely sidelined in Dishonored 2 to basically the role of taxi driver and expedition. So it's nice to see the character actually being expanded. I mean, as you were saying, Kim, there's a lot of properties here that are just basically being reworked or added on or re-released, and we saw obviously the fact that Skyrim is now coming to Nintendo Switch, confirming for everyone who wanted it that Nintendo Switch is going to have third-party developers. So yes, you can now play Skyrim on your Nintendo Switch, and the fact that you will be able to use a Link amiibo, which will enable you to essentially play as Link in Skyrim. And really, I mean, it's...
You know, my thing with this is that Bethesda, if you look at this whole conference, I love the idea that they use the concept of this is all upcoming 2017 games. I think that focus was beautiful. It was perfect. It was what everybody needed to know, that Bethesda has games coming out in the next year. But then you also come to the issue that none of this is a new IP. None of this is a fresh idea that they have. Yeah, Quake has their fan base. You know, Champions are going to come out. They're still keeping it pretty vague about it. You know, they have, like, new maps and characters you can play and all that stuff. And then you hit the under construction area, which is probably where I want to focus most of our talk because, I mean, they look like strong properties. Evil Within is a game that has mixed reviews. It has, you know, Mikami, who is the person behind Resident Evil, who's, you know, the developer behind it, the designer, and, you know, they have very strong people doing this game, but Evil Within did get a lot of mixed reviews, and it makes me wonder that no one talks about Evil Within right now, and even if it was underrated, is it a little too late for a sequel to happen, you know? Is it just because they have nothing that they need to make the sequel? You know, they feel like, okay, well, now it's time. Same for Wolfenstein 2, although Wolfenstein 2 does have a little bit more of an appeal, I find. It looks better, and it looks bigger, and it looks like there's actually, you know, something pretty concrete about it.
You see, with Wolfenstein 2, The New Colossus, I mean, this actually made me want to go back and play Wolfenstein The New Order, which is obviously the game that this is following on for. They actually now obviously moving to America, as was sort of hinted at the end of the original game. And the fact that this one opened with like a play on Lassie, where we've got this gigantic fire-breathing dog called Liesel, who comes jumping over the hilltop, and I kind of wanted to take that little trailer and cut out that section and send it to people and say, have you seen this movie that's coming out about Liesel, the giant robotic dog? But this is going to take place in an alternate future where Nazi Germany has invaded the United States, and you're going to be once more stepping into the boots of B.J. Blazkowicz, who we saw earlier, who's going to be making an appearance in Quake Champions. And yes, details are limited at the moment, and while it is certainly a lengthy trailer, it does end on the high point of seeing a pregnant woman stab a Nazi to death while her friend trips balls on acid seeing a cartoon iguana. It's so much charm to this game that it's like, why have I not been looking at Wolfenstein before now? Why have I sort of only stepped away from the series for so long? And Evil Within 2, it's got a game that's slowly developing this cult-like following, and the fact that the trailer had this like haunting cover, Duran Duran's Ordinary World, It was so atmospheric and it looked really interesting. And I mean, that's going to be released on Friday the 13th, fittingly. So
Yeah, and I mean, for sure, like, I mean, if anybody is interested, we will be announcing when we'll stream this game. We're definitely going to try and do it before the release date and, have our thoughts on whether we think that a sequel is actually worth our time. This wraps up the Bethesda impressions. So moving on, the next conference is Ubisoft. Ubisoft had big news because this year they're not using Aisha Tyler, and instead they're gonna be hosted by devs. Personally, I didn't think that was a misstep. I thought that was great. That was fine. I didn't bother me. I know Elwood is making big eyes at me because of that. But they started the show very strong, introducing Miyamoto to come out, and showing us this absurd, combination of Mario and Rabbids Kingdom battle, and it's odd because it's no longer a platformer. It is a tactical XCOM-like sort of turn-based adventure game.
yeah, it's Mario XCOM. This is the game we've surely all been wanting to see. Yes, I mean, when obviously Mario and the Rabbids were announced as teaming up, it sounded awful. But they've gone and created the game that we didn't know we wanted. And Miyamoto's actually a big fan of the Rabbids. He came out and he was like, I had the models on my desk. And when he gave Ubisoft the rights to do Mario and to go off and make this game, he was like, you can make whatever game you want, just don't make a platforming game. And Ubisoft took that apparently as, yeah, let's go off and remake XCOM, but we'll do it with Rabbids and Mario, and we'll do it with this wonderful, colourful palette. And it's just like, I was looking at this and I was like, this is going to be the game that makes me want to buy a Nintendo Switch.
Yeah.
Because this just looks so much fun. I mean, I'm a fan of XCOM, and this essentially gives me XCOM, but, more light-hearted. And the fact we got to see a Rabbid.
The concept behind it is that the Rabbids had dropped down into Toad Kingdom, and what happened is that they dropped down, and then they morphed into these characters. So you have Rabbids that look like Princess Peach, and you have the Rabbid Donkey Kong, and you have all these things. And, Rabbids are kind of like minions of this universe, this gaming universe, and in so many ways, they add so much charm, I find, to the game. I don't find them annoying. I actually played a few Rabbids games in their early days of their franchises, and I really love it a lot. But moving on, I mean, the Ubisoft conferences get a lot more serious with their coming games, and I think one of them is, I think I need to talk about this hand in hand, because I kind of linked them both together, and it kind of had that link, is that one, we have a DLC for Steep, which is the road to the Olympics, which I think is a pretty interesting idea, because they're morphing it with the 2018 Olympics. But at the same time, the Crew 2, because now you are able to go into motorsport, any kind of vehicles, you can be in cars, boats, planes, and do all these things. It kind of reminded me of the formula of Steep.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's definitely taking what Steve gave us and applying it to motorsports. The original Crew, as we all remember, though, it was a game that originally came out and felt very unfinished, and it was only into the Wild Run DLC that we got the graphical upgrade, we got motorcycles added, and it felt like more of a completed game. What we saw, though, with the Crew 2 did look absolutely fantastic, and the idea of being able to essentially do any sort of motorsport that you want, be it street racing, off-road racing, power boats, free flying. The options just seemed absolutely limitless, as we saw with the original Steep. Now, Steep Road to the Olympics seems like a weird move for the game, seeing as Steep was all about extreme sports and being hip and cool. And then you got the Road to the Olympics, which just seems kind of serious, and it's sort of like the polar opposite. So if we're going to do any sort of sport event, surely it should be the road to the Winter X Games, not the road to the Olympics. But
I mean, they do emphasize on the fact that you get to do all these varieties of winter sports. I think it would appeal to certain people who are into Steep, into winter sports, because it adds a different sort of challenge when your goal is like very based on making it to the Olympics and making it through whatever, And I think I'm still a little mixed on Steep. I don't know how much appeal it still has for the audience right now. And if you're watching this, I'd really like to know if you played Steep and if you're still playing it into these summer months. Or maybe you're in Australia and it's winter. South Park also got a big appearance, and I know Elwood is dying to talk about this because he's been in love and waiting for this. And the first is we had The Fractured Butthole. And along with that, we also got a mobile game called Phone Destroyer.
Yeah, South Park's The Fractured Butthole, it was obviously delayed. It was supposed to have been out now, but it's now been delayed through to October 17th. This is essentially going to do what Stick of Truth did for Game of Thrones is going to do for superhero movies, as it sees the kids of South Park all taking on superhero personas. I mean, who really doesn't want to see Timmy as Professor X or Jimmy as the Flash? I mean, these are all things that looked absolutely fantastic. As being South Park, of course, we've got some very questionable names, such as Cartman, who becomes the Coon because he's a raccoon, and we've also got Wendy, who plays the Call Girl because you give her a call when you need her. It's a childhood innocence with the usual bottom of the barrel that we've come to really sort of expect from South Park, but at this point they are untouchable. You don't questioning South Park about being offensive is like going to Metallica concerts and telling them to turn it down. It's not going to happen. Phone Destroyer, it looks like another card game where it's basically cowboys versus Indians versus clerics versus any other random thing that they can throw at the screen, it seems. The trailer for Phone Destroyer in particular is probably one of my favourites, and it really did crack me up, and it was fun just to see Man Bear Pig also make an appearance in that one, even though I'm still none the wiser of how you play that game.
Yeah, so obviously that's one of the titles that Elwood will be reviewing when it comes out, whenever it comes out. So obviously for Ubisoft, their titles such as Just Dance 2018 is a staple with a performance. It's the same formula over. I don't really want to dive into that too much, I guess. Another star appearance this one had was Elijah Wood, following his horror veins. He introduced a game called Transference. It's supposed to be a VR game, I believe. And
yeah.
it really emphasizes on how VR is, this is an irreplaceable experience type of thing. And it really makes you question it. It aims to make you uneasy about this psychological journey that they're about to take you on.
They're making a lot of big air sales on this one, as they're saying that we wanted to phase the line so you couldn't tell whether you were or you weren't playing the game, and I feel that it's a very high concept to try and deliver. The fact we didn't actually see any footage at all from the game.
But I believe the concept behind it is that you're actually going into other people's traumatic memories. I've read certain things about that. I find that a very scary concept. I'm not sure if I really want to jump into a game like that, but I feel that, like, horror games in general are the target market for VR because it brings in this authenticity in this world that, like, if a monster is like 2 feet before you and they're done badly and pop up in front of you, you'll still feel scared because you have no escape. Obviously, I mean, VR is something that we're still, not super hyped about. We're still pretty much not even on the fence at this point. But I guess this is where we jump into the bigger trailers. I mean, we had Skull and Bones that we had mentioned before. It's, there's a 5v5 experience. It's a more serious sort of sea battle sort of thing. I personally wouldn't compare it to Sea of Thieves just because it seems like a totally different genre that they're going for and a different audience. But I guess the two last trailers we should talk about is the heavy hitters. And the first one is Far Cry 5, which Elwood needs to talk about because he was in love with the running bear attack thing in the first trailer that we saw.
Oh, unquestionably so. When we saw the first trailer for Far Cry 5 and we saw a man being chased by a bear, it was amazingly one of our favourite things of all time. That was also topped by a scene in this new trailer which shows a man being chased by a combine harvester. Well, yet remains whether this is soundtrack to the Wurzels I've Got a Brand New Combine Harvester or not, but this is a game for once we've actually got your cohorts, your fellow hired guns, are as interesting as the villains at the centre of the piece and certainly the focus of the promotional material. As we know already, the game is going to be set in Hope County, Montana, and it's takes place in the town of Falls End, which has been taken over by a fanatical cult who have basically cut off the town from the outside, and it's up to you as a hired gun to basically liberate the town from these cultists. And along the way, you can obviously got the help of fellow hired gun Grace Armstrong, you've got the pilot Nick Ray, and you've even got Boomer the dog, who can steal guns for you and attack your enemies for you. So this is looking great. I mean, it's just essentially more the same with Far Cry. We've also got the option there for co-op, so you can unleash double the chaos as well. But yes, the fact it's based in the States rather than a tropical destination, it's an interesting move for the series. And
it's funny because a lot of people are mocking the upcoming dystopian games of how all these games are targeting some sort of imperfection in the States. And trying to bring a message out. So I don't know how true it is. I'm not from the States, obviously. I'm from Canada, so I don't understand as much of these deep down things, and I try to stay away from the political things a little bit. I've never been in the Far Cry universe, and honestly, I'm a bit intrigued. I think that this sort of storyline is a little bit overused, as in, like, you know, you got a cult running things and all that sort of thing. But, you know, I feel like the game looks fantastic. It looks really, really cool. Obviously, the last trailer to come out, and their showstopper, is 15 years later a sequel to Beyond Good and Evil, which isn't really a sequel because it is set before Beyond Good and Evil. And it came out with a teary-eyed Michael Ansel, who we can understand why, because he's been working with a small team behind the scenes for over a decade on this game, you know, and it finally is in front of everybody, you know?
Yeah, I mean, this is a cinematic trailer, so we've actually seen no gameplay footage from it. This is actually going to take a bit of a twist from the original game, which was like you were the Jade, the photojournalist, investigating this conspiracy, and this one's going to follow this ragbag town of space pirates as they travel through a solar system called System 3. Certainly the world we saw seemed to be drawing inspiration as much from Asian culture as it did Luc Besson's The Fifth Element. It's a very sort of stylish game, and the fact that we're introduced to what we assume to be one of our main characters, Monkey Thief, who is just basically wisecracking and foul mouth, so it's certainly a different world than we're used to from seeing from Beyond Good and Evil.
But it's also very nice because I feel that this is something that could really explain where Beyond Good and Evil's characters come from. Why is there a talking pig, and why is it mixed up with Jade, a normal human being, you know? And, you know, they really go into the depths of saying that this prequel is, you know, it talks about this space world, this universe that experiments on, like, hybrid animals or something, and this is how this has come to be. And it's this really big concept that I personally think is great that they're doing this, and I really hope that, obviously, with the day and age of the technology and stuff, Beyond Good and Evil hasn't aged really well. We reviewed it last year. The link will be in the description below. We both were less than, you know, I mean, we had our issues with stealth and controls, obviously. It didn't translate well. But, I mean, we were both still pretty impressed with a lot of stuff in that game, and this is definitely something that we were at least expecting and you know, anticipating to a certain extent.
So that wraps up the first part of our E3 2017 recap. Join us for part 2, where we'll be looking at Sony, as well as Nintendo's Treehouse and the PC Gaming Show.
Of course, as always, thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, you can like, share, and subscribe. Our home base is thatmomentin.com, where we have a ton of game reviews. You can follow us on Twitter and Facebook at GameWarp Podcast, which we do update gaming news and releases every single day. We also stream over at twitch.tv/GameWarp Podcast, and we also have an Instagram with the same handle where we share our current gaming obsessions. Till the next episode, bye!